My dear viewers, I bring you today a scandalous tale of a woman who dared to cut her skirts short and her hair shorter. I speak, of course, of Gabrielle Coco Chanel, the orphan who rose to dress queens while thumbing her nose at society's rules. We find ourselves strolling the streets of Paris, where our heroine once walked, though I dare say her steps were more determined than our leisurely pace. For Coco Chanel did not simply enter the world of fashion, she stormed its gates and rebuilt them in her image. Before Chanel, ladies were trussed up like Christmas geese, barely able to breathe, let alone sit comfortably. After her revolutionary touch, women could, imagine the scandal, actually move in their clothing. This humble chronicler promises to reveal how a poor orphan girl transformed not just hemlines, but the very notion of what it means to be elegant. Let it be known that Coco Chanel's beginnings were most decidedly not fashionable. Born in 1883 in a charity ward, how the gossips would have tittered. Young Gabrielle Bonheur Chanel learned life's cruelties early. By 12, her mother had succumbed to tuberculosis, and her father, a peddler with apparently better things to do than raise his children, abandoned her and her sisters faster than last season's bonnet styles. The girls were dispatched to Aubusine Convent, where the nuns surely never imagined they were housing fashion's future queen. The stark black and white habits of the sisters, the clean lines of the abbey. It seems our young Gabrielle was taking mental notes that would one day revolutionize fashion. One might say the nuns' simple garments were her first fashion show. At 18, she fled the convent faster than a debutante flees an unsuitable match. After a brief stint stitching for others, she tried singing in cabarets. It was here she earned the nickname Coco, perhaps from a song about a lost pet named Coco, or perhaps from something far more scandalous. A lady never tells, but this chronicler has her suspicions. What amuses me most is how Chanel rewrote her history more often than I rewrite my columns. The truth was simply another fabric to be cut and reshaped according to her design. How deliciously bold! Chanel's entry into society's good graces came through the oldest method known to ambitious young women. She caught the eye of a wealthy gentleman. Etienne Balsan, heir to a textile fortune, installed her in his Paris apartment where she began crafting hats. The ladies of Paris were wobbling under monstrosities that resembled garden parties perched upon their heads. Chanel offered them radical thought, hats one could actually wear without neck strain. Soon after, she formed an attachment to Arthur Boy Capel, an Englishman whose pockets were as deep as his affection for our heroine. With his funds, she opened her first shop in Deauville in 1913, selling something that made society gasp: sportswear made of jersey, a fabric previously thought suitable only for men's undergarments. I declare, using underwear material for outer garments, the scandal! War soon changed everything, as wars tend to do. While men fought in trenches, women rolled up their sleeves and went to work. Suddenly, corseted gowns seemed as practical as swimming in full regalia. Chanel's comfortable designs answered a need no one else had bothered to address. This observer finds it most amusing that when fabrics grew scarce during wartime, Chanel simply bought enormous quantities of jersey that no serious designer wanted. The fabric was cheap, the designs revolutionary, and the profits substantial. One might say she turned rags into riches, quite literally. The Roaring Twenties roared even louder thanks to Mademoiselle Chanel. In 1921, she created Chanel No. 5, a perfume that didn't pretend to smell like a single flower, but rather like a mysterious woman. Before this, perfumes announced themselves like over-eager debutantes. Chanel's scent whispered secrets instead. In 1926, American Vogue featured her simple black dress, calling it Chanel's Ford, as revolutionary and accessible as the Model T. Before this revelation, black was for mourning widows and stern governesses. After Chanel, black became the color of sophistication that makes every woman look slimmer, a service for which many of us would gladly pay any price. Chanel's philosophy was revolutionary. Luxury must be comfortable, otherwise it is not luxury. Imagine comfort as a consideration in women's fashion. Next, someone might suggest women deserve the vote. Oh wait, that happened too. At one glittering soiree, while women draped with jewels like Christmas trees with ornaments, Chanel arrived in a simple white dress with barely a bauble. When questioned about her lack of adornment, she reportedly quipped, "I am not adorning myself. I am adorning the dress." The room fell silent, much like when I reveal a particularly juicy piece of gossip at a tea party. What made Chanel design so distinctly? Chanel? Allow this fashion chronicler to enlighten you. First, she had the audacity to steal from men's wardrobes. Her iconic jacket, borrowed from men's tailoring but curved subtly at the waist, acknowledging that women possess a shape worth celebrating. She used tweed, formerly reserved for gentlemen shooting grouse in Scotland, and made it feminine and urban. Then came her most democratic notion, costume jewelry worn proudly alongside the real thing. Perhaps she believed that wearing millions around one's neck does not make one stylish. Understanding elegance does, causing dowagers everywhere to clutch their pearls, both real and fake. Every detail had purpose, a concept as novel to fashion as a comfortable shoe. The chain sewn inside her jacket, hems, wasn't decorative. It made the jacket hang properly. The quilted pattern on her handbags wasn't random. It was inspired by the jackets of stable boys. Even her two-tone shoes served a purpose. The black toe made feet look smaller while hiding scuffs. Genius wrapped in practicality, served with a side of style. Most revolutionary of all, she designed clothes and living models rather than sketching them. Imagine that! Creating clothes meant to be worn on actual human bodies. What would they think of next? Even the most glittering diamonds have their flaws, and Chanel's story contains chapters that would make even this gossip writer's quill hesitate. When war again darkened Europe's door, Chanel closed her fashion house, perhaps the only time she followed a trend rather than setting one. She took up residence at the Ritz Hotel, which unfortunately also housed high-ranking German officers. Her wartime romance with Baron Hans Günther von Dinklage, a German intelligence officer, was not the love match a romantic novelist would pen. Evidence suggests she may have engaged in activities that went beyond fashion design, possibly involving Nazi intelligence. After Paris was liberated, Chanel was arrested, a fashion faux pas of the highest order. Though released without charge, one assumes her powerful connections were as valuable as her sewing skills. She retreated to Switzerland faster than a debutante flees an unsuitable match. This chapter remains as complex and layered as a Chanel jacket. Even this chronicler of society's sins must acknowledge that our heroine's legacy contains both light and shadow. Just when society thought Coco Chanel had taken her final bow, she staged a comeback that would put any society widow's return to the marriage market to shame. In 1954, at the age of 71, when most ladies have resigned themselves to comfortable shoes and reminiscing about past glories, Chanel returned to fashion with the same subtlety as a cannon at a garden party. French critics turned up their noses like they'd smelled last week's fish. but Americans embraced her return collection with open arms and open wallets. Rather than chasing the newest fad like an unmarried lady pursues eligible bachelors, Chanel doubled down on her signature style. The Chanel suit became the uniform of the elegant women, embraced by figures like Jacqueline Kennedy and Grace Kelly, and the women who knew that true style speaks in a whisper, not a shout. Madame came back to fashion to stop women from looking ridiculous. What delicious confidence! This observer cannot help but admire a woman who trusted her taste above all others and was proven right. Chanel's life story proved as captivating on screen as her designs were on runways. In 2009, 2 major films brought her story to life, each capturing different facets of this complex woman. Coco Before Chanel, starring the luminous Audrey Tautou, focused on her early years and rise to prominence. The film portrayed her transformation from orphan to fashion pioneer, with particular attention to her relationship with Boy Capel. Tautou captured Chanel's determination and distinctive charm, though one suspects the real Coco was considerably more formidable. That same year, Coco Chanel and Igor Stravinsky explored her alleged affair with the famous composer. The film, starring Anna Mouglalis as Chanel, presented a more mature, established Coco, already the queen of Paris fashion. One cannot help but wonder what Mademoiselle herself would have thought of these portrayals, though I suspect she would have insisted on redesigning the costumes. The 2018 documentary Seeing Coco provided perhaps the most authentic glimpse into her world through archival footage and interviews. For those wishing to separate fact from fiction, a distinction Coco herself often blurred, these documentaries offer fascinating insights into the woman behind the interlocking seas. What these films reveal collectively is that Chanel's life was as carefully constructed as her jackets, with some seams hidden and others prominently displayed. Like any good storyteller, she understood which parts to emphasize and which to conceal. Coco Chanel worked until her death in 1971 at the age of 87, designing until the end like this writer intends to gossip until my final breath. After her departure from this mortal catwalk, the House of Chanel wandered like a debutante without a dance card until Karl Lagerfeld, a man whose fan was as sharp as his tongue, took the reins in 1983. Under his direction, Chanel maintained its identity while staying as relevant as My Society papers. The enduring appeal of Chanel defies fashion's fickle nature. The quilted bag, the tweed suit, the two-tone shoes, these designs remain as coveted today as an invitation to the season's most exclusive ball. Few designers have created classics that withstand time's test like a diamond withstands scrutiny. Today, Chanel's value exceeds $15 billion, a fortune that would make even the wealthiest duke raise an eyebrow. Its current creative director, Virginie Viard, continues the tradition of evolution within tradition, much like society itself. As we conclude our promenade on Rue Cambon, where Mademoiselle's apartment remains preserved like a moment in amber, this chronicler ponders what made Chanel so extraordinarily influential. She didn't just design clothes, she understood how women wished to live. Fashion fades, only style remains the same. It contained more truth than most are comfortable acknowledging. By creating a style balancing elegance with function, luxury with simplicity, and boldness with restraint, she defined not just a look, but a philosophy. From an orphaned girl singing for her supper to the arbiter of elegance, Coco Chanel's rise would be deemed too fantastic for fiction. She didn't merely follow fashion's rules, she wrote new ones. And in doing so, she altered not just hemlines, but horizons. Dear friends, remember style, like reputation, is not what others believe about you, but what you know about yourself. For those seeking the most accurate information, I recommend consulting multiple sources given the links in description box, as Mademoiselle herself was known to revise her own history. The truth, like the perfect little black dress, requires careful attention to detail. Disclaimer. This video is not sponsored by Chanel or any other brand yet. And my curious ones, this video was made in InVideo.ai. Those who are planning to start their vlogs, I encourage them to give InVideo a try. Link is in the description box. I bid you adieu until our next fashion revelation. Au revoir